by the end of it, it seems like you have a real soft spot for him as a, like the hand he was dealt, his journey. Obviously, he did these skyjackings and was a bank robber, but saying, well, he was murdered by the FBI without justification, and he had a really hard go. Do you talk about how you feel about him?
Well, that's an accurate portrayal, and that's very inept of you. That's very adaptive of you to pick up on that. I was growing up. I was not always the most popular, strongest athlete and prom king or anything like that. I was in the lower class, lesser, and oftentimes bullied. And I grew up attempting to stick up for the kids that were bullied or the less fortunate kids, those that had received a bad bounce or been dealt a bad hand and were trying to deal with it the very best that I could. Those are the people that I empathized with and still empathize with to this day. In the case of McCoy, I think he was a great guy. I think he was dealt a very bad hand. He was not treated properly. He tried to do everything that he could. I fully empathized on Richard Floyd McCoy's position, everything that he had done for our country, gone to Vietnam, served 2 tours, been shot at, wounded, done everything that the U.S. government asked him to do. And he came back from Vietnam and he got spit on. There was no job. And America hated the Vietnam vet when he came back, and he realized there was no future, and he was mad. Yes, for sure. Yes, he had a grudge, and yes, I have a grudge.
And that sentiment I think that you're talking about of sticking it to the man, I would assume even right at the beginning was a big part of why people were so fascinated and obsessed with this, because we have yes, it was a crime, obviously, but there was nobody got hurt. Nobody, he didn't blow up the plane. He didn't, it was one of these, if you will, victimless crimes, but it's just obviously a crime. But then he was never found. There's interviews, people on the street at the time going like, yeah, it's good for him, and is that part of why it was such a big deal then and throughout until now?
Yeah, I think anytime you pull off the impossible, you get a little heroic stance from that. You did it, you pulled it off. Can't be done, so he did it anyway. And yeah, I can empathize with his position, and I'm pretty proud of what he pulled it off. I wish that I had been there. I wish that I had done it. Those days are long gone. But if I'd been in the same position, I can tell you, I would have been on board the boat back in 1700s, dumping the tea overboard. That would have been me. I fully empathize with his strong position on where he was. Nobody got hurt, and I think all of America reveled in his success in what he did and the fact that he got away with it. He became a national hero, not because he committed a crime, but because he got away with it.
Yeah. And it spawned both back then and until now, so much literature and filmmaking and CooperCon and all these things there's an entire economy based on who is DB Cooper. Talk about your experience going to CooperCon, for example, or dealing with all the other people in this world.
Well, I've only attended one CooperCon, and that was in the fall of 21 in anticipation. And I was there with Richard and Shantae, although nobody at CooperCon knew that they were there. They knew me, but they didn't know who my guests were because they were completely unknown to the internet world, and no connection there. But yes, CooperCon, there's probably 30 other suspects out there, 30 books, 30 other stories, 30 other people trying to peddle their ways on who this person is. So all of it vaporizes into nothing. As soon as it's solved, there's no need for CooperCon. There's no need for the other books, and there's no need for the other suspects. As soon as you solve this, it all simply vaporizes. Therefore, the Cooper vortex is what I call it. All those people, they don't want it solved. They have to have this thing alive. That's how come they have fought so hard. They have taken specific efforts to decredit Richard Floyd McCoy as being DB Cooper, because they know that he was DB Cooper. And as soon as the world recognizes, it's pretty simple. Richard Floyd McCoy was DB Cooper. There's not really anything else to talk about.
Right. And there's the fun of going to an unsolved mystery convention gets removed and people can't make money off of it with their theories. I loved your footage from CooperCon when you were interviewing each person after person, say, okay, who do you think he was and how confident are you? And I don't think anybody was below 90% confident, even though it was a different name each time.
Yeah. No, it's pretty consistent. I've asked hundreds of people the same question, and you're always going to get something different. It was a fun time. What was really fun was having Richard and Shantae there. We're sitting there laughing, recognizing we're at CooperCon with the children of Richard Floyd McCoy, and nobody has any idea. And if you look at that last scene in my part one video, we're at that bar, the DB Cooper bar, and we asked the guy that's the brewmaster there, we asked him, what do you think the odds are that DB Cooper's children have ever been in this bar? He has no idea that they're standing right there in front of him when I asked him the question. Isn't that hilarious?
That's great. And you know, I mentioned, and you mentioned that there are so many books and all different subjects, but there is one particular book that is much more relevant to your investigation. The Rhodes Kalam, I'm not sure how you say Kalam book. Can you talk about that book, why it was hard to get and what's in it and etc.?
Well, you're talking about the book written by the ex-government people. It's called The Real McCoy. And in the whole genealogy of this entire thing, that book came out and I was completely unaware of it. But the U.S. government produced a statement back in early 2000s that basically said, we're going to release from the U.S. government of documents and printing. We're going to release all the documents that we have. They've all been redacted. And if you'd like to send in a check for $281, we'll send you all the documents that we have. We'll send you a Xerox copy of everything that we had. So that was my start of it a long time ago. So I got out my checkbook and sent in the check for whatever that amount was. And I waited like 9 weeks. And all of a sudden, this big box showed up on my front door, a cardboard box packed, and it had all these documents in it. And I started sifting through and reading the documents. That was my start of it. I didn't find out until 7 or 8 years before 2021 that there was actually this other book out there written by the two ex-government guys called DB Cooper, The Real McCoy. And I tried to find it. It had gone into print and it had been production had been stopped, so it was a rare. You can still find it on eBay right now between $500 and $1,000 a copy. Finding a copy of that is rare. I got one, so I, of course, ordered one. And once I had that book, that is the Bible of DB Cooper. That's written by the two guys that were there at the time, and they'll tell you straight up, it was Richard Floyd McCoy, and here's why. Their work in completing that book is truly amazing. And once I had all the documents and their book, for me, it was simply case closed.